And it's fine if I record this session, right? Because a few people won't be able to join today, so I just wanted to have this session recorded. Anybody want to volunteer to introduce themselves? Or we could just do it in the chat. It's up to you guys. Yeah, you can go, Isha.
Hi, I'm Isha Swaminathan. I go to Apo High School in like Middletown, Delaware. I like to sing. Um, I play a lot of sports and I love to do Bollywood dance. And a fun fact about me is that um I have a dog. Yeah.
Thank you, Isha, for sharing. Anybody else? Sure, Rajita. You guys don't have
Hi.
to raise your hand. You can just unmute. But yeah,
Okay. Yeah. My name is Prijita and I go to American High School from California. And some hobbies of mine are playing volleyball and playing the guitar.
thank you. It's pretty early for you in California. Yeah, thank you for joining.
My name's Ayush. I go to MOT in Delaware. Some of my hobbies are swimming, volleyball, and cross country.
Thank you, Ayush. And I think I talked to your dad. You're joining from India, right? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Aditi Shinoy. I go to High School South in New Jersey. One of my hobbies is that I like to swim. I'm a swimmer. And a fun fact about me is that I have always lived on the East Coast.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, so I guess we can get started. So yeah, basically, as you guys might already know, like the SAT has undergone a few changes in the past 2 years. Before it used to be traditionally on pen and paper, but now it's completely digital. So the way that the SAT math section works, maybe a few of you guys already know about this, but basically there's 44 questions on the SAT math section, split into two modules, which are each going to be 35 minutes long. And basically you have module one and module two. Module one is going to be some of your easy slash medium questions. And then depending on how you do on these first section, the first 22 questions, module two is either going to be an extremely hard section or it can be an easier section. But what we're going to try to do is aim for that harder section, because if you get at least 15 out of the 22 questions right, you will go to that harder section and you can get a higher score on the SAT. So this depends on how you do on the first section. So, I mean, that's just a regular introduction to how the SAT math section works. The reading and writing section is a little similar in the sense that it has two sections, I mean, two modules, and it's different from how it was before, because before you would have, like, for the reading section, you would have long passages where you have to read for like maybe 6 minutes or 7 minutes, and then you would have to answer like 10 questions on a certain passage. But now each question has its own corresponding passage or some sort of like fill in the blank. So you could either have reading questions or grammar questions in the same section. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? No, okay. So for today's section, for today and Friday, I was just thinking about going over some key concepts that are going to show up, and they're probably going to go in like from an easier to a harder or advanced difficulty. So you guys might already know some of these concepts, but don't fret. This is just like sort of a review, and we're going to go over some practice questions for each of those topics from the SAT. So it'll help you guys. Some of them, even though they might be easier topics, they might be a little challenging or tricky in the way that the SAT words their questions. And if at any point you guys have any questions, you can either just raise your hand, or if I'm not talking at that time, you can just unmute and just shout out a question. Okay. So the first concept, have you guys already gone over systems of equations or linear equations in general? Yeah, okay. So this is going to be a review, I guess, in that case. So systems of equations. So I might be a little slow in writing, but yeah. So basically, systems of equations are going to show up. We're going to only talk about two variable forms because that's what the SAT tests on. But we can also go into, if you want more depth, you can also look into systems of equations in three variables. But for the majority of your needs right now, you only need them to learn them in two variables. So like, for example, you might have a system of equations like x plus y equals 10, and then 2x minus y equals 15. And the question will say, we want to solve for x and y, the ordered pair. So you guys might already know, does anybody want to shout out any methods of solving for this type of thing? What are the different methods of solving systems of equations? You can just unmute and shout out any answers.
Substitution and elimination.
Mhm. Any others? So there's also the method of graphing these two functions. As you can see here, if you were to bring over the x to the other side, it's just an equation of a line, y equals 10 minus x. And the same thing for the other one, it would be 2x minus 15. And then you can graph these and try to find what the point of intersection is. We'll go over that in just a second. And then there's another method that I want to show you guys. And this is like sort of a trick like that would help you guys solve these types of questions faster, especially when you have harder coefficients or larger coefficients. And this is called the Gauss-Jordan elimination. It's just a fancy way of saying number. Just like instead of worrying about your x and y, the variables, you just worry about the coefficients, and then it just becomes much more simpler. So let's just go over substitution. Does anybody want to go over how you would do substitution in this case here? You can raise your hand in the Zoom.
I'll do it.
Okay, sure. So what do you can just say what the steps, and then I can just show them on the screen as well.
All right, so for the first equation, you want to take y to the other side to get x is equal to 10 minus y. And then you want to substitute the value for x into the x in the second equation to get 20x minus 2y. And then you combine terms to get 20x minus 3y is equal to 15. You take the 20 to the other side to get negative 3x is equal to negative 5. And y is equal to 5.
I think your voice is breaking out.
Take that number, put it in the equation.
Wait, is it breaking out for you guys as well? Okay, I guess I see you back again. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Were
I
those
got
the
like that.
steps? Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's what I
then
said.
yeah, and then when you find y, all you need to do is just plug it back in here. So then you get what x is equal to 10 minus y, but y is 5 over 3. So then you get 25 over 3. Okay, so that's how you do substitution. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, Does anybody want to do elimination for this example? How would you go about using elimination to solve the same exact system of equations? I'll just we can do it right here. Anybody? Okay, I'll just do it this case for this one. So elimination is where you just want to get, instead of, it's similar to substitution in the sense you're trying to get rid of one of the variables. In this case, you're getting rid of the x variable and you're solving simply for the y variable. And then you solve y and then you can find x. Elimination is kind of similar. I mean, it is basically the same thing, but you're not going to do it by substituting. You're just going to try to manipulate these two equations in such a way that you cancel out one of the variables. So what's one variable we could cancel out by a simple addition or subtraction here?
Y.
And how would we do that?
Add the equations.
Yep, if you just add these two equations together, then you see that y minus y gives you 0. So then you're just going to have x plus 2x. So you get 3x is equal to 25 because you also have to add the 10 and 15. Then you just solve for x by dividing 3 on both sides, and you get 25 over 3, which is the same exact answer that we got from substitution. And if you were to just substitute back x, you would get 25 over 3 plus y is equal to 10. So then y would have to be 5 over 3. So you would get the same exact answer. And I think, does everybody here know how to graph equations on a coordinate plane? Basically, if you were to graph these two equations, you have in slope-intercept form, you get y is equal to 10 minus x, and then y is equal to 2x minus 15. And then if you were to graph these two equations, you would get something of the form 10 minus x, and then this would be 2x minus 15. Something like this. So then if you were to look at what the intersection of these two lines is, it would correspond to the same ordered pair, 25 thirds and then 5 thirds. Does anybody have any questions so far? No? Okay. So I'm just going to show you guys another method to solve this. And this might be a little harder to understand at the beginning, like it's just a different method, of course. But I assure you, if you like to if you practice this a bit more, it will make your solving your solution, like getting to the solution much faster in the long run. So I'm just going to write the same exact system. And here, I just want you guys to forget about the x's and y's. So we're just going to worry about these coefficients here. For this x, it's 1. For the y, it's 1. For this x, it's 2. And for this is negative 1. And have you guys heard of matrices? So all we're going to do is put these 4 numbers in blue into a matrix, a 2 by 2 matrix. So what you're going to get here is 1, 1, 2, and negative 1. And basically what we want to do is get ones on this diagonal here, and we want everything else, these other numbers, to become 0. And how we do this is by, again, elimination. What do we do here? Well, we added the two equations. So instead of them being equations, now we're going to worry about rows. So this is row 1, this is row 2. And what we're going to do in this case is we're going to add row 1 and row 2. And we're going to replace the first row with that. So all we're going to do is to the first row, we're going to add row 2. Does this make sense, or is it confusing any of you guys? So this, once again, this is row 1, this is row 2. And now what we're going to do is you're going to add 1 plus 2, and that's going to change there. You're going to have 3. And then you're going to do 1 minus 1, and you get 0 right here, right? And then the second row stays the same. Okay, so now we have a 0 here. And if you were to look at the, you might say we forgot about these, the 10 and 15. Well, you have to also remember that there is the, 20, it's 25 here, and this is 15. And then you just have to like remember this. And when we write it out in like an augmented matrix is how we call it, it's gonna look like this: 3, 0, 2, -1. And these are the coefficients. And then we're just gonna draw a line down here. And then we're gonna have 25 and 15. So just remember that if you were to add something or add anything to anything else, you have to change everything and you have to add everything so that there is no inequalities at the end. Because if, say, we forgot to change the 10 to a 25, then we would have a completely different system of equations. Does that make sense? Okay. So now here, I want a 1 here, but I have a 3. So what can I do to get that 3 to become a 1? Any suggestions? What could I do to 3 to make it 1?
By 3?
Yeah, you can divide by 3. So we're just going to divide this by 3. And we would then, what would we get for our first row?
You get 1 and 0.
1, 0. And then the second row stays the same. And what are our values in the augmented matrix on the right of the line?
25 over 3 for like the first one, and 15 for the one under that.
Correct. Good job. Okay, so now what this means is that we've already solved for one of our variables, and this is the x variable. So as we already saw twice, x is going to be equal to 25 over 3. And now all you're going to do is from the second row, we're going to subtract 2 times the first row. So let me just draw this once again. What we're going to do is from the second row, we're going to subtract 2 times the first row. And what this does is it takes away the x value. So we're eliminating the x values in the matrix. And then we get 1, 0, 0, -1. And then this is going to be 25 over 3. And this is going to, the bottom one is going to be 45 minus 50. So that's -5 over 3. And then all you're going to do is multiply the second row by -1. So this makes the negative signs a positive sign. And then in the end, we have x is equal to 25 over 3 and y is equal to 5 over 3. Does this make sense? Does anybody have any questions? And for those of you who are just joining in, please just, if you can, turn on your videos and then just change your name into your Zoom name into the format like your full name and then what high school you go to and then what grade you're in parentheses. Okay, so that's basically an overview of systems of equations right now. I'm just going to, we're just going to go over a few practice questions about this topic. So just give me a second. So a majority of these questions are going to be either multiple choice questions or some of them, very few of them are going to be student based responses where you have to solve it without any sort of you won't get any multiple choice questions for this. And most of them are going to be word questions because the SAT likes to trick you guys. But for the first question that we're going to look at here, we're just going to do a simple multiple choice question, and they give you the system of equations. It's just the question is just loading here. Just give me a second, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt, but for Gauss-Jordan elimination, the goal is to make it into RREF form, right?
Yes, RREF, reduced row echelon
Okay.
form. Correct. Sorry. There we go. So you guys can just take like a minute to solve this, and then we can just go over it. Just be ready. Anybody, I might call on anybody to solve this type of question. And when you're done solving this question, just like put just raise your hand in the Zoom meeting so I can just know whoever's ready. Okay, I guess can you guys see the screen moving? Okay, let's call in Isha. Do you want to go over what you got and how you solved for this question?
Okay, yeah, sure. Uh, so I got A, like -17 for Y, and I used the process of elimination thing to do it because I made the equation x plus y equals 29, and I like made it all negative so I could
Okay.
like eliminate the x. And then I subtracted the y from 2y, made it 1y. And then I got and do that I got y equals -17.
Yeah, so if you were to subtract one of the equations from the other, then you would get y is equal to negative 17 or negative y is equal to positive 17, depending on which one you subtracted from the other. Is that what all of you all got? Okay, so good job. That was the correct answer. And I'm just going to go over another type of question that's going to come on. If you look at question number 10 here, this is a sort of more challenging type of question. I mean, it's not always going to be challenging because it's a longer question, but it definitely does look very daunting when you stumble upon a question that looks like a paragraph out of an SAT reading section. So let's just see how we can break down this type of question and solve it. So does anybody want to read the question? If anybody wants to.
I can read it.
Sure. You can read it, yeah.
In addition to the standard airfare, a particular airline charges passengers for two kinds of travel services: $25 to check a bag and $15 to upgrade to priority boarding. If the airline collected $3,065 in baggage and priority boarding fees from 145 travel services on two flights combined, which of the following systems of equations could be used to determine the number of bags checked, B, and the number of priority boarding upgrades, P, purchased on the two flights?
Okay, thank you for reading. So, does anybody want to just like try to just take a shot at how they would solve this and what they think the answer might be, or what this question even means in the first place?
I said it's B because 20, so like you create a system of equations based on the variables there, and B was the only one that fit it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the correct answer. So in this case, we know that there's going to be 145 travel services in total. So that includes both bag checks and priority boarding upgrades. So what that means is that one of our equations is going to be that if we were to add up the number of bags checked, B, and the number of priority upgrades, P, you would get 145 in total. So right off the bat, we can eliminate A and D because it doesn't have that here, right? So those are going to be wrong. And the second equation is going to be regarding how much the airline collected in fees overall. And how do we find that out? So for example, if two people check their bags, how much would the airline make from those two services? Anybody?
$50.
$50. So we're basically going to multiply the number of bags checked by 25 and we get $50. So that means that if we have a certain number of bags checked, we're just going to multiply that by 25. And we know what that variable is. Well, that's B. So we're going to have 25B. And for priority boarding, it's the same exact thing. We're just going to multiply P times 15. And the amount of money that the airline collected in total was $3,065. So that's going to be our other equation. So if we were to look at the answer choice as well, both the B and C look pretty similar. But if you were to look at the coefficients for the variables, well, B is the correct choice and C is not because they just swapped the coefficients. Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody have any questions? Just feel free to unmute and ask any questions that you guys have so far. Okay. So just like for the next 2 minutes or just like 1 minute until like 12:35 or 9:35 if you're in Pacific time, you guys can just try these two other questions. The first one is going to be a little more challenging. I mean, if you graph it or if you have to just find the coordinates, and then you can just find out what the quadrant is. So yeah, I'll just give you guys a minute or two. Okay, and also when you guys get a chance before you guys leave the call, in the chat box I sent a link to a Google form. It's just a few basic questions about who you are, just like some of your interests. And please also do input either your parents' numbers, that would be the best, or if you want, you could input both. And I'm going to create like a WhatsApp group so I can send any updates or anything if necessary, so you guys can be updated at the earliest possible convenience. So yeah. So I guess also we'll just go over the questions. Does anybody else who hasn't answered yet want to go over how they solved what they got for question number 8 and how they solved it? Anybody, Shweta, Aditi, or Prajita, anybody want to?
I'm not
Or
sure if this is right,
Mhm.
but I got B because I basically made everything into slope intercept form.
Mhm.
And then you can figure out that the equations are y is equal to negative 2/3 x plus 1 and y is equal to 4x minus 12. For the second equation, because we know that the b value is the y-intercept, negative 12, and it has a positive slope. So it's going from the second quadrant up, we can assume. And then for the first equation, the y-intercept is 1 and it has a negative slope. So it would meet in the second quadrant.
So you got to the slope intercepts correctly, and the only thing is that here this is the first quadrant, right? And then this is second quadrant. This is the third quadrant, and this
Sorry,
is
I
the
meant
fourth.
fourth quadrant.
Yeah. I thought that might have been, yeah, so fourth quadrant is the correct answer. So good job, your reasoning was correct. So basically, as Aditi said, the y-intercept of the first one here is going to be +1, and we're just going to go in a negative fashion here. And it crosses the x-axis around the number 3 when x equals 3 halves. And the second equation here, let's just draw that in y. It's going to start at -12, and it's going to go upwards. As you said, it has a positive slope, and it's going to hit this blue line before it even reaches the x-axis, because the x-intercept in this case would be then when x equals 3, but this is x equals 3 halves, so this comes before. So the intersection in this case would be in quadrant 4. Another way you could solve this is by just, instead of graphing it all together, you could just try to solve for x and y by doing substitution or one of the other methods that I showed above. And if you're to get that, it would still give you the same thing, because quadrant 4 is going to be a positive x value but a negative y value. Quadrant 1 is positive for both. Quadrant 2 is negative x but positive y, and quadrant 3 is negative for both. And we'll be going over these quadrants a lot in the future, especially when we get to the trigonometry and how to apply these in for positive for like positive trig values or negative trig values. So good job there. And does anybody want to try number 6?
Not number 6, but for the last question, isn't it actually quadrant 1? Because isn't the
Um,
slope for the first line positive?
yeah, the slope is positive, but we won't reach quadrant 1 until after x equals 3, right? And the other
No, for
line,
the first line. Oh,
the
like isn't
first
that
line,
y is equal to 2 over 3x?
no. So if you're to, oh right, you're right. You have to subtract 2x. So I just went on. Okay. So yeah, because you do subtract 2x there, you have to get when you multiply you get 3 plus 2x. So then you would get positive 2x. So you're right, Ayush. It would be quadrant 1. Sorry about that. Do you want to solve, does anybody want to solve the sixth one? It's Ayush or Isha, you can also chime in if you want. Or I can just go over this one as well. So this is going to be similar to this question that we went over here, the priority boarding and bag check-in. The only difference is that not only are you going to set up the equations, you're also going to solve for one of the variables. So for the variables itself. So that's the only difference in this case. So it's asking for that the total fare for 2 adults and 3 children on an excursion boat is $14. So that's just going to be 2 times, let's call adults A, and then plus 3 times C for children is equal to $14. And then what we're going to do here is the next sentence says, if each child's fare is 1/2 of each adult's fare, what is the total cost for one adult and one child? So this sounds a little different, but what we're going to do here is note that if, for example, it costs $10 for one adult, that means that it costs $5 for a child. So if you were to substitute that in, it would just be that 2 times a child is going to be equal to 1a. So that's going to be our equation there. So now it's all set up in for substitution. You can just substitute a right here, and you get 4c plus 3c is equal to 14, or that 7c is equal to 14. Then you get c is equal to 2. And then if you were to substitute that back into the second equation, you get a is equal to 4. And then what they're asking is the total cost for one adult and one child. So you're just going to add these two values up, a plus c, you get 4 plus 2 is equal to $6. Does that make sense? And does anybody have any questions of anything that we went over today? Okay. So, I mean, I guess I went a little over time than I expected for this topic. Let me just ask you guys here. Do you guys want to go over another topic really quickly, or keep that for Friday, and then just if anybody has any questions, or we can just go over other general SAT questions as well. Anything, you guys can just chime in. Okay, so for preparing for the SAT, other than things here, another thing is that if you go to any, like if you search up SAT practice questions, Khan Academy has a lot of resources for preparing for the SAT as well. And if you were to go through those lessons, all it does is it just like there's some videos and then practice questions as well. And it helps you prepare for the SAT. And additionally, it also helps for English sections as well, because it goes over practice passages and then how you want to solve for those types of questions. Additionally, the main source of preparing for the SAT math section would just be practice questions, and otherwise, like just learning about the concepts as well, which we would be going over in these classes. So that's the majority of how to prepare for the SAT math section. Does anybody have any other questions or? Okay, I guess we can just do a few other questions just to see like what you guys know so far. Um, so some questions are going to be based off of a graph. Are you guys all familiar with graphs? Okay. So let me just. So some questions, there's going to be a few groups of questions that more than one question is related to a certain topic. So for example, this question here is going to be about a paraglider and um, the height that the paraglider is going to be at in relation to time. Is this visible for you guys here? Okay, so I'll just read the question here. So as you guys can see here, both of these questions are going to refer to this one graph. And the graph above here, it shows the relationship between height h and time m in minutes. So what are we going to do to solve the first question? Well, all you're going to do is try to find an equation representing the relationship between these two axes, the height and the time in minutes. Does anybody want to give it a shot, like what the steps are and how you would solve this? Even if you've already gone, you can also just volunteer. Aditi, do you want to give this a try?
Sure. We know that the y-intercept is 3,000 and all the options have plus 3,000, but then we have to find the slope.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
you
what's
would
the
take,
equation for slope?
it would be y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So what 2 points do you
So,
want to take?
we can take 0 and 3,000, and then is it 3 comma
It's 4 comma.
4 comma
And that would be 2,400.
2,400, yeah. And then you would do 2,400 minus 3,000 divided by 4 minus 0.
And what do you get?
You get negative 600 divided by 4.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that would be negative 150, so BB.
Correct. Good job. So yeah, in this case, all you're going to do is represent it in slope-intercept form. And as Aditi showed here, all we need to do is find two different things. We know that slope-intercept form is going to be y equals mx plus b, or in this case, it's not y and x, it's just going to be h and m. And first, you're going to have to find this y-intercept, which is in this case 3,000, because that's the value of h when you're on the h-axis. I mean, and then what you're going to do is find the slope by taking two different points on this graph and then compute the slope, which is going to be delta y over delta x, change in y over change in x, rise over run. So that's how we got to the answer B in this case. And another thing, a strategy is sometimes the SAT, in this case, all the y-intercepts were the same, but sometimes it's going to be something like this could be 2,000, this could be 2,000 as well, and this could be still 100, negative 150. But because the y-intercept is not correct, you can just automatically eliminate these types of options, and it makes it so much more simpler. And that's the same thing when we're looking above in the system of equations module. For right here, we know that right away we can eliminate A and D because B plus P we know has to be 145. It can't be 290 or 72.2 and 72.5. And then after that, it makes it more simpler to look at it because all you're going to do is look at two options instead of four options. So that's one of the strategies that you're going to get a lot of help from. And we're just going to go over this question as well. So if the height of the paraglider is 1,350 feet, which of the following best approximates the time that the paraglider has been flying? So if we were to look here, I mean, this is 1,200, this is 1,400, so it's around approximately right here. And if we were to just, all we're going to do is put a point there and then go back to the n-axis. And if we were to look at that, it looks like approximately 10 and a half minutes to around 11 minutes. So what do we have to do here? Because it looks really close, right? So we don't know for sure what the time is. But thanks to Aditi here, we solved the seventh question, and we got an equation. So instead of having to look at the graph, we can get a precise value for the time. And how would we do that? By plugging in 1350 for the height here. So all we need to do is solve for m. And we know how to do that. This is a regular linear equation. We're going to bring the 150m to one side, and then we're going to take the 1350 to the other side by subtracting. And then we get 1650. And if we were to divide 150 from both sides, you would get m is actually equal to 11 minutes. So our initial guess was approximately correct, but it's just better to get a precise answer rather than just try to guess, because if we guessed B in this case, which kind of looks right, but it isn't right, we could have lost a point right there. So it's better to just be on the safe side and check. And another thing is, for each and every question on the SAT math section, you'll have more than plenty time, at least a minute per question. So in the final few minutes, I'm just going to go over just a few strategies on test taking day. And when you do these practice questions, try to time yourself when you do practice questions. And I'll be sending a few, just like a short worksheet of questions. If when you guys fill out the form, so I can just add you guys to the group, and then I can send a PDF of a worksheet. So then all you guys can do when you're doing that is, say I have 6 questions on the worksheet, just time yourselves for like 6 minutes or 7 minutes, and go at that pace. Try to make sure that you're on pace for each and every question, so that when you get to harder questions and when you get to longer sections, you'll be able to keep up your pace. Okay? Does anybody have any questions before we end here? We can just end here. And then also I have another poll for you guys for next section. We have a few different options for what we can go over, what sections you guys want to go over. So let me just bring that out here. And in the meanwhile, you guys can just fill out the form if you haven't already. And I just launched a poll as well. So yeah. Okay, so in the poll, I got the general consensus that people want to go over the basics of statistics as well as factoring, quadratics, and polynomials. So on Friday, we'll go over these topics, and if we have more time, then we can go over other concepts as well. So, okay. So yeah, just thank you all for joining today, and just fill out the form. And if you guys know anybody else who would be interested in getting help for the SAT, please do share this. Please do share with them the meeting link, and also just like the form, as the Google form, if they're interested, so that I could add them, and they could also access the recording of today's session, and also join Friday's session. So please do that. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see each other again on Friday, same time. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a
Thank
good day.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank
Oh,
you.
just one thing. Do you do solo sessions?
Yeah, I also do solo sessions. Yeah, if you're interested in that, we can talk about that as well.
All right, cool. I'll talk to my dad about that. Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining.
Yep.
The question, Shravan,
Mhm.
do you tutor? I'm a parent. Do you tutor for SAT? My daughter is a junior right now. She had to go to a Girl Scout event. So do you tutor as well? Like, how much do you charge?
Yeah, so these first two sessions, these are just intro sessions to see if people are interested, and then also for me to just gauge what level the students are at. And after that, this is going to continue into a tutoring program, a group tutoring session for the SAT math section.
Sure, sure. Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.